In this video, we're going to show you to install the steering rack bellows boot on your Nissan Frontier, located on the steering rack. Using a 21mm socket, go ahead, loosen and remove your lug nuts. Get to remove the wheel and set it aside. Now we went ahead and we turned the wheel outward so we get direct access to our outer tie rod. On the top, you're going to see a cotter pin on the top. Use a pair of pliers or cutters. You want to go ahead and remove this. Now, cotter pins are a one-time use. You are going to have to replace this. Once you have that cotter pin out, let's go ahead and loosen this nut. I'm going to use a 21mm socket to go ahead and loosen this nut. Now I'm going to keep the nut on here, and I'm going to use a hammer. I'm going to strike the knuckle here. That should release the outer tie rod end here from the knuckle. I'm just going to thread this on a little bit. Now this is loose. We want to come to the inside part right here, and this is the jam nut. So we want to go ahead and back this off a little bit and separate that from mating up against the outer tie rod. Now I'm going to use a pair of large locking pliers on this jam nut. And we want to go ahead and loosen this. Okay. So now that our jam nut is backed off a little bit, I'm going to unthread the castle nut here off of our tie rod end. Set that aside. Now the next thing we want to do is go ahead and rotate this here. We technically want to unthread this off of our inner tie rod, but you can see that it's spinning there. So we're going to try and use our 17mm wrench. Here we go. Got that free. Now the next part is critical. We're going to go ahead and rotate our outer tie rod end off. And we're going to count the amount of full revolutions it takes to unthread it off of the inner tie rod. That way there, when we install the tie rod end back on, we want to go ahead and thread on that same amount of turns. That's going to give us a preliminary alignment to get you down to the alignment shop and have it professionally done. So let's go ahead and do that. Roughly 14 and a quarter turns for that to come off. Once you have that off, what I like to do is take a crayon of some sort, a marker, and write that somewhere so you don't forget it. So I'm just going to write on the inside of the frame, 14. That way there, I'll know that amount of revolutions. And we'll go ahead and remove our jam nut. This is a 15/16 if you want to use a wrench or a socket. Thread that off and set it aside. Now right here is a clamp. We're going to use a pair of pliers. I want to go ahead and pinch these tabs. Go ahead and pop this off. Just a little hoop. The next step here is to follow the bellows boot down to the inside. Now down on the back here, there is a band clamp, and it's a one-time use component. Now we're gonna go ahead and use our tool here. It has a little notch on it. And what we're gonna do is feed that on the inside, put it right inside here like so. I'm gonna go ahead and bonk the handle here and pop that band clamp right off. With that separated, let's go ahead and pull this off the rack. And then we'll slide the bellows boot down and off. Before we install our boot, don't forget to remove the old clamp. Take your boot, slide that down. Now what we might have to do is push the rack back inside so we can get that connected. So how we do this here, we're going to go to the other side of the vehicle, grab that wheel, and we're going to turn and get that boot to get right in there towards the rack. Line that up, pop that into place. Now what we're going to use a plastic tie here. Go ahead and create your loop. Slide this in. Just going to go ahead and make that a little bit tighter. And then once you have that good and snug, we're just going to cut off the excess. Now to the outside, go ahead and take your clamp, slide that in. Use your pliers to open that up. Slide that in, put that right on there. Now I'm going to go back to the other wheel, move that wheel and extend that out. Install your jam nut. Install your outer tie rod. Now remember, we had counted about roughly 14¼ turns for this to go on. We did document that. We just wrote on the inside of our frame rail there. We just got one portion of the thread caught, so we're going to start our 14 count revolution in. We're at our 14 there. Go ahead and spin that jam nut down. We're not going to tighten this. We just want to kind of lock it into place gently. I'm going to go ahead and install our tie rod end into the knuckle. Now before we put on our castle nut, you want to pay attention to the hole in the stud here. It's basically going from the front to the back. That's going to be critical to when we go to install the cotter pin on our castle nut. Tighten down the nut here. Now we want to torque this to 37 foot-pounds. Next thing we want to do is install our cotter pin, but you want to make sure that with the notches in the nut, it lines up with the cotter pin hole. and ours is not. So what you want to do is you want to continue to tighten this nut until the notch in the castle nut lines up with the hole for the cotter pin. Never loosen the nut for that to line up. So once you get the cotter pin through, I'm going to grab one of the legs here with my cutters, feed this through all the way, and fold this over. Tap that, and I'm going to cut off the excess. Lastly, let's go ahead and tighten down our jam nut. Make sure that's good and tight. Now you can see that our outer tie rod had twisted down a little bit. I'm going to grab that and I'm just going to twist this up so that this is more horizontal. This point here, this part is all set. You want to go ahead and install your wheel, bring the vehicle down, and get your alignment professionally performed. Good, take your wheel, line it up. Now if you have these center caps like this here, I want to go ahead and line this up. Ideally, you want to go ahead and get all of the lug nuts started by hand. And then once you have them all started, we'll go ahead and snug them down. Good, and torque down your lug nuts to 98 foot-pounds. You want to try and do this in a crisscross pattern.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.